Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host, Jen, and I am joined by the author of a slim volume that packed a whole bunch of really scary nightmare material into it, and I am so excited to talk about it. Welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Yes, sure. So my name is Hildur Knútsdóttir. I'm an Icelandic writer, and I just published The Night Guest, which is I think it was my 17th published book, but it's my first one that's being translated into English.
Wow. Yeah. So you're quite prolific. That's a huge number of books, and I'm so excited that we finally get to read one of them here now. Could you begin by telling us a little bit about perhaps the inception point for this book? Was it a character? Was it a situation or a mood? What was the seedling or the founding point of this story?
So it's happened to me, I don't know how many, maybe 5 times now, that I get these bouts of fatigue, I think you would call them, where I get really tired and I wake up, even though I've slept like 8 hours, I wake up like feeling really tired, and like my hands and my legs are aching, like I've been like on a hike or something during the night. And when this first happened, of course, I was really panicked because I thought something serious was wrong with me, that I had some kind of horrible disease. So I went to the doctors and they didn't find anything, and they did all kinds of tests and nothing came out of it. And then it just passed. And then it happened again, like a year later. And the same thing happened. Like I had like all kinds of tests, but they didn't find anything. And it took me like an embarrassingly long time to figure out that this would usually happen like after I had just turned in a manuscript. So it was probably just like stress related or just from being under pressure or some pressure or something. And I also had like small children at the time, and I wasn't sleeping really well. But this, and it still happens to me, but now I know that it's going to pass. So I just like, and also when I like start, when I feel it's starting to happen, I just, I'm careful just to like take some time off. And but this was actually the seed for the story. Because I was wondering, it got me thinking, like, what if a person feels like this, wakes up feeling as if they have been, helping somebody move or climbing a mountain or something, and they actually discover that they are doing something during the night. And also this, this fear of, being convinced that there's something really wrong with you, but you don't know what, when your body is not behaving in the way it's supposed to, or the way that you feel that it's supposed to. So that was basically the seed for the story. And so I wrote this story, and the premise is kind of like my own. So Iðunn is always really tired, and she goes to the doctors, and they don't find anything wrong with her. So she decides to take matters into her own hands, starting to take vitamins and trying to sleep regularly, and also walk 10,000 steps every day, because that's what you're supposed to do that. So she buys like watch with a pedometer so she can monitor her steps, and she forgets to take it off one night before she goes to bed. And when she wakes up the next morning, she sees that she walked 40,000 steps in the night, but she has no idea where she went or what she was doing there. So she starts trying to come up with ways to figure out where she's going, what she's doing there, and what is going on with her, basically. So it's kind of like a detective story.
It is. Yeah, she is her own detective of her own life in a way that's very interesting. Um, and her situation is so scary for two reasons that you have already talked about. One, that, she has no idea what she is up to in the middle of the night. And two, the medical system is giving her no answers and sort of not taking her terribly seriously. There's one doctor who is very kind and treats her with seriousness, but there's like two huge areas of horror there. Could you talk a little bit about crafting your main character? Because I really did like her. She has such an interesting perspective on what's happening to her, and she's very sympathetic for that reason, but she's also kind of prickly, a little bit like a little bit like unlikable in some areas. She's not always so nice to the people in her life. Could you talk about crafting her and getting inside her head?
Yeah, so I started writing the story. So like I was saying, I've this was my 17th book, and I'm publishing my 20th in Iceland now in a couple of weeks, and most of them are YA actually. So in Iceland, I'm mostly known for my YA books, and I think when I was writing this one, I was just like, I decided to do something, or what came out was clearly not YA. It was kind of like taking a shower between, between these YA books. Although I write horror for young adults as well, and for children. I don't know. It's just like this was I didn't like set out to find a voice. This is just kind of took shape, and she has and just came very easily to me. And it's so funny, like now when I see people are like, "Oh, she's so mean," like whether this is a voice that came very easily to me. I don't know what that says about me. Yeah, but she has a lot of intrusive thoughts, and I think she doesn't really know herself that well, so she's always trying to like looking for signals from other people on how she should be, which I think is an exhausting way to be. So she doesn't really know who she is, but she's trying to guess who other like what type of person other people around her want her to be, and she's trying to live up to them. Yeah, and she has all these intrusive thoughts that I think a lot of us have, but we don't necessarily share with other people. I don't know if you would yeah, she's I don't know if she's bitchy. I don't know what I would call it. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, she has mean thoughts about other people and also about herself.
Yes, true. Yeah, she does the same thing to the world that she sort of does to herself in that
Yeah.
way. And it's hard to tell how much of it is her inner self and how much of it is just what's happening to her and being so tired and in pain, that like changes your personality, especially over time. So
Absolutely.
I'd love if we could talk a little bit about the structure of the book, because I found it so fascinating and really addictive. Like it was so easy just to keep reading, and like never put it down. Like I think I ended up reading it in one sitting because it was so compulsively readable. I'd love if you could talk about how you use repetition and like the short chapters, because it feels in times almost like hypnotic, like you are under a spell, like probably how Iðunn feels like for a lot of the story.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do with this book, so in Iceland we have this really strong tradition of like the novel as being like the highest form of literature, and like people usually think like the bigger the better. Like if you write like a really chunky book, it's probably really good and has like a lot to say. You're an author that has a lot to say, but at the same time we also have this thing that people are reading less and less. So I wanted to write a book that you could kind of experience just like watching a movie. So you sit down and it takes you like 1 to 2 hours and you finish the story. So it's just like a complete story, and you can just take it all in one sitting. And the short chapters, and I also have there are also empty pages on the book, and so I wanted kind of to make the silences speak, and also I wanted kind of to like pace the reader. So you have this really short chapter and then a blank page next to it, so you have to flip the next page over. So I kind of wanted to I don't know if I'm gonna continue with this movie metaphor, just like to keep the editing like so I wanted to kind of like pace how I was giving out information to the reader. And yeah, I'm really happy to hear that you finished it in one sitting, because that is how I wanted this book to be experienced. Yeah.
Great. Mission accomplished. Like you did. That's great. I love what you said about revealing things and hiding certain things, and how you drip out information for the reader. There's a lot that has to do with her past in this story that is also intrusive in some real ways. I'm going to be careful because I don't want to spoil too much about how things go, so I'll let you decide what to say here. But I'd love if you could talk a little bit about how you decide what to reveal and what to hide, because sometimes the stuff that is revealed scares us, but also sometimes we are scared of what we don't see because we don't see it, like, so could you talk about how you navigate that?
Yeah, so I think this also can be in part explained by me having been writing a lot of YA books for a long time, where I think you have to maybe explain more to the reader. So I was really luxuriating in, getting to put some of the burden of interpretation on the reader, because it's not just the reader that I was envisioning for this story. And I really love both movies and the books that don't spell everything out for you. I really love when things leave something up to your interpretation, or that you have to put something like kind of like puzzle or something that and also I also like stories that have maybe multiple possible explanations, and when the reader can kind of decide how it like really ended, or like what was the meaning of this. So I really love stories like that because they make you think. Of course, I mean, not all stories. I mean, I also really love stories that are like romance, where you like you have the ending, and and I also love mysteries where like everything is explained to you. But I think we also need the other kind of stories that you have to work for a little bit. So yeah, that was what I wanted from this story. I didn't want to spell everything out. I wanted to like let the silences speak, and leave it a little bit up to the reader to interpret and fill in the blanks. And I've talked to readers who have a completely different interpretation of what happened. I have my own, like to my mind, it's not a very ambiguous ending. Like to me, it feels very apparent what's happening. But I love it that some other people are like, no, I mean, no, it was like that, So I like these kinds of stories. So that was what I was going for.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like when you sort of complicate closure in that way, you leave some questions unanswered. It really does drive the reader to think about the story long after they've put the book down, because I also love a good romance with a happily ever after, or not happily ever after, whichever direction, but it doesn't tend to stay with you the same way because it has like clear closure. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but so another thing that I've noticed, so the book is on Goodreads now, and like I know you're not supposed to read Goodreads reviews, but it's like my I've been publishing for a long time, so I think I have thick enough skin to do it. And I think it's really so there are two things that kind of stick out to me. which is a difference in how the English version is being received and how it was received in Iceland. And firstly, I think Icelanders have a bigger tolerance or more tolerance for ambiguous endings. I think there are more American readers who are finding that a bit harder to swallow. And also violence towards animals. Yeah, it's like, so there are, yeah, it's just good to put out the content warning. So there are cats in the story that are killed off the page, but yeah, but it's quite bloody, and that is really triggering for a lot of people. I am finding out, but like nobody mentioned that or batted an eye here in Iceland. So it's definitely a different sensibility when it comes to that, which is interesting. I don't know where it stems from actually, and people are really surprised to hear that I really love cats, and I didn't put it in there lightly. So there's definitely. So Iðunn also really loves cats, and she is slowly, as the story progresses, she is kind of being stripped, or her life is being stripped of everything that she loves, and cats are a part of that. Yeah, so I mean, I didn't put it in there just for cheap thrills, but I think it took me a little bit by surprise, just like how people are not finishing the book because of the cat violence. Yeah.
Fascinating. And that does seem very American to me, to not really care about, people getting murdered, but then get very, very upset with animals.
Yeah.
So, oh, yeah, this is, I'm very interested actually in that sort of difference between your reception at home and the American reception. And I'm interested in the role of your translator, because your translator is quite accomplished too. Could you talk about that process?
Yeah, and I mean, she's basically the reason that the book was published in English. So it was during the pandemic. It was in 2021. There was this really small science fiction, fantasy, and horror convention in Iceland that's called IceCon. And Mary Robnett Cole, who is my translator, she was it's a really small convention. They always have international guests of honor, one or two, and then they have one from Iceland. So I was the guest of honor from Iceland that year, and Mary Robnett was one of the international guests of honor. So she was here, and we just started talking, and this book had just come out in Icelandic. So when there was like an interview with me, and I did a reading, so I read from this book in Icelandic with the English translation, just like a sample translation on the screen behind me. And Mary Robnett, she is very accomplished. She's a great writer, and I've been a fan of hers for a long time. But she is also a puppeteer. And so she used to live in Iceland, I think like 10 or 15 years ago or something, because there was this Icelandic show called Lazy Town, which was like with puppets. So she used to live in Iceland for, I think, 2 years or 1.5 years, working on this show. And so she learned some Icelandic. So she could like hear me reading, and was interested in the story and asked me to send her the manuscript. And then she asked if she could introduce me to her agent, Seth Fishman, and then asked if she could translate a little bit of the book to send to him. And then he sold it, and then she ended up translating the whole thing, which is amazing. And we had a really good relationship when so she would like translate it and then send to me. And think it's probably a bit hard for her because, okay, so I've been translated before. I've been translated into French and Czech and Macedonian very randomly. But these are all languages that I don't speak. So I mean, I wasn't breathing down the translator's neck or like reading it, which I was kind of doing with her. Because she sent it to me, and then I would go over it and fix something, and then I would send it to her, and so yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it was a bit stressful for her to for me to be able to like mess with it. But yeah, but we worked. It was really a good collaboration, and also with our editor Lindsay, with Tor Nightfire. Yeah, and then she has translated 2 more novellas that are coming out. I don't know exactly when, because publishing timelines are weird. But yeah. But so we've so she's already translated. So one is basically ready, and then she just finished translating the 3rd one, but she has yet to send it to me, so I haven't seen that translation.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, I'm really glad to hear that you are collaborating more in that way. And if you ever want to come and talk about any future books on the show, you're more than welcome to come back because, yeah, this one really grabbed me and it stayed with me for a very long time. And I'm
Thank you.
very excited to read more.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, listeners, you're going to check out The Night Guest. It is such a good read. And as you know, we both recommend now, try to read it in one sitting because it is like I didn't think about it while I was reading it, but as you were talking, like it does feel very cinematic and you feel very close to the protagonist. Like it's just such a great read. So treat yourself. You can find it at your favorite independent bookstore or library, wherever you like to go for those things. All right, it is now time to close this chapter. We'll see you soon.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.